Afternoon, gentlemen. Welcome to the Recruitment Journeys podcast series. Thank you for being involved.
Thanks, Pete.
Having us.
Let me do the introductions right. So we've got Ryan Lynch and Michael Boyd from Iterate, meeting Ryan Kelly, excuse me, from Creative Natives. Say hello, chaps.
Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan. Nice to meet you, mate.
Hey, chaps. Nice to meet you too.
I assumed when I organised it, I don't know why, because you're all in this kind of cool, creative vibe, new age recruitment kind of vibe. I thought you'd all know each other, but no, you don't.
No, I've know of the brand, but we've never really come across each other. I don't believe.
Yeah, similarly, I think I've stalked the website and checked out Ryan's site and checked him out before, but no, I never had too much to do with the great man.
Good to see we've all got the branded merchandise though, so we follow the brief there.
Got the grey jumper memo.
Speaking of branded merchandise, I was going to say Ryan K. I'll refer to you as Ryan K. And
what about R. Kelly?
Probably a bit before the watershed, isn't it?
Yeah. You would have become familiar with Iterate if you were ever driving through Richmond and seeing the giant 16-meter high Iterate. What is it? Luminous signage. Is that what was the story there, boys? I mean, it's awesome, but what's the situation? What's the crack?
Well, let Boyd tell that one.
It was a bit of a work in progress. We got our hands on. We were next door at 333 where we met initially, Pete, for the one of the initial Recruitment Journeys podcasts, and the space come up next door at 335. When was it, Ryan? We've been 4 months ago, but
yeah,
a bit of a blank canvas to work with, and our architect, if you want to call them that, designed a nice little entrance way for us, which ended up turning into a 1.5 meter 3D LED lit sort of Iterate sign. But it's a thing of beauty
with a dimmer
in the flesh.
It is
got a dimmer even.
Kelly, it's something you can aspire to. You have to see this thing to believe it, but it's
we haven't been able to show it off to anyone just yet, so it's been a big waste of money so far.
Hi, chaps. Thank you so much for being involved. This is Recruitment Journeys. We're in our 3rd series now, and today we are going to talk about. We're all talking about COVID. We're all kind of sick to the back teeth of it, and hopefully. Slowly but surely, we are starting to put this thing behind us. But what's been very interesting is how recruitment businesses have coped. During COVID, some have coped wonderfully well. Some have had an absolute nightmare. But you would think logic would suggest the businesses that would have found it the hardest would have been the startups. Now, both of your businesses, Creative Natives and Iterate, started just before COVID. And I would imagine it's been an absolute roller coaster ride for you. But from the outside looking in, all I can see and all I hear when I look at your businesses from afar is how well you're doing. And not only have you survived COVID, but you seem to have thrived during COVID. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Your journey as a startup through COVID, in the hope to inspire, educate and motivate any recruiters out there who might also be planning to start a recruitment business right before a global pandemic and recession. So listen, chaps, I've already given you a brief introduction earlier on in the podcast, but would you mind, in your own words, letting the listeners and the viewers know who you are? I'll start with you, Ryan Lynch, please.
Sure. I'm Ryan Lynch. I'm director and co-founder of Iterate. I've got around about 15 years in tech recruitment. Hence quite a few grey hairs here, and yeah, specialise in development. That's my bread and butter, and continues to be so. That's me.
Boydy.
Michael Boyd, co-founder and director of Iterate. I've worked beside Ryan now for 9 years, maybe, but been in recruitment for 12 in total. But similar, very tech, IT, digital focused. But that is me.
That is you, Mr. Kelly.
Cool. So Ryan Kelly, director of Creative Natives. We are an agency that is in both Melbourne, Sydney, and covering Brisbane, specialising across creative, marketing, and digital. So yeah, we've just ticked over 2 years.
Yeah, and already a multi-state operation, Ryan.
I think that's being very complimentary, but I'll take it. Yeah. So no, we've got about to be 3 on the ground in Sydney, 5 in Melbourne, and yeah, we're covering Brisbane as well.
Perfect. Cool. Okay. All right, chaps. Well, let's get into it. Let's kind of start on the exploration of your journey pre-COVID and during COVID, and not so much post-COVID, but pre and during. I'd like to start by asking you, because I know that particularly the Iterate boys that I've spoken to before, you put a lot of thought into, quite rightly, you put a lot of thought into this before you took the plunge. You know, there's all kinds of family meetings involved, and you were both walking away from comfortable positions in the recruitment arena, as were you, Ryan. So I'm keen to know, how much thought did you put into market conditions, as well as everything else, but how much thought did you put into market conditions before you took the plunge? Was it something that you even thought about? I'll open it up to anybody.
I mean, I'll kick off. I mean, in all honesty, not a lot of thought. I think my mindset when I left my previous company was I wanted to go and work for myself, you know, be this new brand and do things how I want to do it. And looking back at the time, it was largely fueled between my partner had just started at a tech company which allowed her to work 3 months anywhere in the world. So we had this dream of, you know, working 9 months of the year, spending 3 months in Europe and just, you know, living the dream. So that was, I guess, one of the big driving factors behind it. So in short, the other thoughts around, you know, how I was going to do it, that was probably a second thought, and market conditions probably didn't even play much of a part in the decision making.
Yeah, because you know, none of us knew what was around the corner, right? It was all, and we'd had it so good for so long. What about you boys?
I think probably, yeah, you're right. We took it for granted a little bit, that the market was going to be stable. I think it had been stable for years. Probably since the GFC, when it really fell off a cliff last time, and that was probably 10 plus years ago. You know, I think there was a certain, you know, certainty that the market would continue being pretty strong. And Boydy and I had been sort of in our respective markets and networks for a while at our old agency, and yeah, there was, you know, self-confidence that we were able to continue in a fairly buoyant market. So it didn't really cross our mind, you know, starting a new agency. I think you'd probably agree, Boydy.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I've thought about, and that I continue to think about, the main disruptor was probably the wave of automation or something coming along that would render potentially the recruitment industry or, you know, people in our sector to displace us. I probably thought that would be a bigger threat than a pandemic. So the one thing that was in the back of my mind was probably that over a global pandemic. But yeah, never really thought we'd be headed to where we were. But yeah.
Are you still worried about the robots coming, Boydy?
I mean, you'd be stupid not to think that there'd be some tech or advancements out there. Even I saw the Seek guys and ex-CEO sort of targeting the sort of contingent labour force with some products, or some at least tech sort of not too far away. So I think you'd be a little bit ignorant to think there's not something around the corner.
Yeah, we've been fighting the robots for years, though, and still being able to carve out a living. So continue.
Yeah.
So okay, so let me ask you this, because you're doing basic mathematics. I think both of your businesses were going around 6 or 9 months before that fateful month. I think it was March 2019, wasn't it, when the world fell apart. Had you known that the pandemic was around the corner, if you'd had a crystal ball, would you still have pressed on and started your businesses?
I think, in honesty, I would have probably backed out and would have probably thought, let's put this on ice for now and keep going. You know, where I was at the point in March was, you know, I just hired one of my best friends, you know, took him out of a very safe job, sold him the dream of recruitment, and you know, brought him into the business. And that was literally 2 weeks before the pandemic. So, it's crazy how things work out. But yeah, I think if I'd known, I would have probably backed out at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What about you boys?
Yeah, I'll say no. Like if the appetite for risk just is immense to take that leap with so much uncertainty around. So, I mean, I've got a fairly strong appetite for risk, and but that's too much. I definitely would have thought that is a poor decision. So I think it would have happened eventually, but it wouldn't have happened when it did. I would have pressed pause for 12 months, sort of stuck it out for a little bit longer. Once the market improved, and maybe made the move, but definitely wouldn't have knowing what was coming.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know too many people who would have dived headfirst into it, knowing the pandemic was around the corner. But like Boyd said, yeah, I think it would have happened eventually. It just would have been put on ice for a bit to ride it through.
So going back to March 2019, how was Iterate going? I know Kyla had joined by then, right?
Yep.
Had you made your first hire by that point?
Yep. Yeah. So Kyla come across. Feb was great. The start of our 2020. You mean 2019? We went.
2020 we were still at the old establishment.
Yeah. 2019 was sort of the year prior, but
yeah, of course it was. Yeah.
I had a quick look at the numbers previous earlier, and our 2020 started off amazingly well. So January, which is typically a pretty poor month, or can be a pretty flat month in recruitment, was right up there. And I think Feb was our best month on record since we'd opened the doors. So we'd started off 2020 with a bit of a bang.
I think we were pretty much on the verge of expanding our team as well, almost pretty much at offer stage. And yeah, I think that was around March.
It was the day before. It was pretty much the day before that big lockdown come into place. We had sort of contracts going out to our second hire. That fate stepped in.
What about you, Ryan Kay? How were things at Creative Natives when the world fell apart?
Yeah, look, I mean, we were, really on track, doing well, and I guess that was the motive behind bringing on a second person, because I felt like I was being spread too thin. And I've done it a few times, but I look back on the LinkedIn timeline, and there was just this moment in time where I think I had like a load of jobs posted. I think at the time we were about to move into a warehouse in North Melbourne. And then about a week later, everything had just completely collapsed. And it's obviously incredible that the difference a week or two makes. But at the time, I thought this is easy, not easy, but we were well on track and going great guns. So I think probably got a bit ahead of myself, I would say.
Yeah. One of my questions was, had you been enjoying the ride? And I sort of know that you all had, and I think startup life was clearly treating you well. But hate to bring back bad memories, but what was that week like for you? You've invested everything, your blood, sweat, and tears into these businesses, and then it all, the industry is on its knees. What emotions as a startup? What emotions were you going through?
It's pretty desperate times. I think we had a shared office, and we all just went to the pub in Richmond and thought, what the hell are we going to do?
I think it was a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning as well. Everyone was pretty much, all the contractors were finished up, and pretty much all the jobs disappeared and got press pause sort of overnight. So it was a bit of a sort of a crisis meeting, but just a lot of anxiety, uncertainty. It wasn't a pleasant couple of weeks for a lot of business owners, not just the recruitment industry, but just nationally.
A couple of months, I would suggest, Boydy, not a couple of weeks. Almost a couple of years. What about yourself, Ryan? What was it?
It was, I mean, like everyone, it was dominoes. Every call you were taking was a cancellation of an order. I remember one contractor got in touch with me and said, without this contract, I need to claim benefits. Can you help out? Or that was the moment where we were like, this is bad. Like, we need to help people out. And I remember just getting some real basic Excel spreadsheet out and uploaded it to LinkedIn and said, any freelancers that need, if anyone needs any freelancers, access this spreadsheet free. I'm not trying to, and I think it was like 1,500 candidates put their details in, and this content went absolutely wild. And I mean, the reality is, I'm sure 99% of those people didn't get a job out of it, but it was just kind of, we have to do something. We've got people that are, in an extremely grim place. What can we do to help out? And I think that kind of, shaped the next few months with us. It was more, right, what can we do to help as many people as possible, with the idea that this is the only way we're going to keep our heads above water. I mean, I'd just taken my mate out of a job, and we teach someone recruitment when you've got no jobs, no candidates that you can place. I mean, I've known the guy years, and we were doing like real basic role play. We were like, this is too weird. We can't do this. So that was our business at that point. And we did that for a few weeks just to try and keep morale up. And yeah, it was grim.
It was grim. And there were so many horror stories. I remember a young lady I'd placed, Irish lady. She lost her job. She was in probation. She lost her job instantly. Clearly she wasn't going to get another job. And she said, right, okay, well, I'm going back to Ireland. So she had to go home to a country where she also wouldn't be able to get a job. She'd probably be unemployed, and she couldn't get out of a lease in Melbourne. She just signed a brand new lease. So she was paying rent in Melbourne, and she was unemployed in Ireland.
Right.
Been thousands of stories like that.
Yeah.
Terrible. Okay, all right, cool. So it was horrible. It was brutal. And but then once you got through that kind of oh shit moment, and the dust had settled somewhat, before the market had turned around and exploded, like thankfully, thank God, touch wood, it has. What strategies did you implement to get through this? What was your survival strategy?
Like Ryan said, I think you went from having lots of jobs on with a few candidates to no jobs on with lots of candidates. So it was about pivoting and really just trying to manage your candidates and clients on both sides, and almost be a career counsellor for the candidates right through that. We were linking up clients and candidates all the time just for an introduction to help them out during a tough time. But it did allow us to take a bit of stock, because we weren't so busy on the recruitment front to sort out our back office a bit. I know it's probably some of the boring stuff that always gets pushed aside, but we worked a little bit on our legal side, our T's and C's, our financials and accounting software, our database. We also sort of fine-tuned a bit of our marketing material as well. So whilst it was really quite quiet on the recruitment side, allowed us a bit of time to invest in the back office stuff that probably wouldn't have got sorted out, now, given we are a bit more time poor with delivery. So we're able to sort our back office out a little bit more as well, which is a bonus.
There were still there were pockets of work out there as well, and there were some businesses that were sort of hiring through COVID and that weren't deterred, I guess, with what was going on. So we were fortunate enough to strike some relationships, some through third parties, others directly, to kind of identify where those pockets of work were, and still have some jobs on through what was some pretty lean times. So I think we avoided completely bottoming out off the back of probably a couple of good customers through the journey that were able to help out. So and then it was just trying to control what we could control, really. And sounds sort of cliched as hell, but we were just not looking too far ahead at that point in time, or not trying to plan too far ahead at that point in time. It was very much about between the back office stuff that Ryan mentioned, and if you got a brief on, you were going 100%. It was getting filled, so it was just filling what was in front of us and trying to stay somewhat positive about what was going on. So
Ryan Kay, what was your survival strategy?
Oh, look, I mean, we went really hard on the webinar piece. I think we ran 4 or 5 over that period, and the weeks basically meant we would come up with a concept for webinar, book some guests, and then for the whole week leading up to it, we were like nightclub promoters, just trying to get as many people attending this thing as possible, as something to kind of give us that momentum to, hey, we've got 150, 200 people on this call. That's success. And even I remember once I saw an eco furniture company advertising for a role, and I literally rang the guy up and said, I'll work this for free, because I just wanted to give Callum some exposure to some form of role, so we could speak to a candidate about a real job, because we were getting to the point where, you know, what is this job without working jobs? It's not a job. So that was kind of the survival mode at that time. So unfortunately, I think we didn't make a placement for probably 2 months, and in reality we got nowhere close in 2 months to sending an invoice. So
okay, so you're all hanging on by the skin of your teeth. You know, you're looking after the back office, doing work for free. At that point in time, we had no clue how long this thing was going to last. Did any of you, Boydy and Ryan, did you ever kind of sit down and say, mate, this might be a long time. Should we turn over our cards, go back and get a job, and then look at this again? Did anybody ever come close to throwing in the towel?
Oh, I don't think there was ever the want or thought to go back to our old company, asking for our old jobs back hand in hand. But I think recruitment and being a small startup, because it's such a lean operation, and outgoings are pretty minimal, save for advertising and LinkedIn subscriptions. We thought we'd certainly get by. We didn't see an end in sight, but we thought, with a few contractors out and the odd perm job, we'll get by. And I think we just had that confidence. We didn't know when it was going to happen, but it was going to happen eventually. And I never thought of throwing in the towel at any one stage, that's for sure.
No, neither. I think that, and I said this to Ryan when it was all unfolding, I thought if this had got a hold of us, if we were 5 years in, it would have hurt us a lot more. And if we were, if we were a month in or 2 months in, it would have killed us as well. So if we look for a silver lining, it was, Ryan and I and Kyla, we hadn't employed anyone else. We didn't have to make any tough decisions on making people redundant or anything like that, which a lot of the bigger recruitment teams and bigger offices in Melbourne obviously had to make those sort of tough decisions. But we were fortunate enough that we were lean enough and agile and small enough to be able to sort of scrape through, I guess. So going back wasn't an option.
Ryan, did you ever turn around to Callum and say, mate, I'm so sorry for messing up?
I'm pretty sure at one point he did say, look, mate, just don't pay me anymore. And I was like, well, we'll work through this. But I think like all of us can probably relate to the fact that, when you do go out and start your own business and go out and do this, it makes the mindset very difficult to ever consider going back to work for somebody else. And I think if I'm being really honest, that was never an option. I would have done a lot of other things before trying to apply for a job with another recruitment agency. So I don't think that was ever a real consideration. But Callum would have been so bored of me saying this, but I was like, mate, this is the hardest you'll ever receive or you'll experience in recruitment. If we can survive this period, we will literally do great. And that was kind of again, it sounds really gimpy, but that was our kind of saying we used to say to each other is, let's get through this and we'll be fine. And and luckily we are best mates and we got through it. It was.
And then this amazing thing happened. The clouds parted and the sun started shining on us again. We were still living with the pandemic, but the market just almost miraculously bounced back in a way that took, I think, unless I'm mistaken, took everybody by surprise, even the Greg Savages of this world. None of us quite could believe what was going on.
Yeah.
How did that feel when you suddenly just started? You were busy again. You were doing deals again.
Felt bloody good. It felt like, yeah, just the gates had opened again, and like Michael said before, we'd been fairly tactical in trying to sort of look for where the pockets of work were during sort of lockdown, during the early stages of COVID. So they just started to get busier and busier, and then everyone else seemed to follow. So before we knew it, we had contractors out and quite a few permanent briefs on the desk to work on. It was just like a total turnaround to a bit more of an optimistic mindset and world out there.
I feel like, again, we were quite fortunate in the sense that working in technology and IT, once businesses had taken time to sort of digest what was going on and take stock and realize that, you know, they weren't going to, they couldn't they couldn't ride it out. They weren't riding out COVID. So a lot of businesses knew that, you know, life had to go on and the businesses had to keep going. And once they got their processes set up in terms of, you know, remote interviewing, remote onboarding, which did take a period of time, once businesses, you know, got that confidence up and started to roll those processes out, then, you know, we did see those kind of green shoots in the market where the jobs started to come back online. So I think we're fortunate in tech that it was a fairly quick bounce from the market, just because the nature of everyone can do this sitting at home. You know, everyone's switched to fully remote sort of pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah, I think just relief, and it was pretty magic. You know, the first I remember the first invoice sending and just that sense of, okay, I think we've gone through the darkest period. And I feel like, you know, there was a real sense of we've come out of this stronger because of it. And, you know, I'm probably not sure our recovery was as quick as the guys, because we don't just do tech, but it's been more of a gradual. And then obviously, you know, the last few months have just been completely bonkers, really.
So at what point, obviously the market returned and, you know, we were all suddenly very, very optimistic again. At what point did you guys think, okay, this is an opportunity? You know, we need to harness this. We need to turn this, you know, what was a disaster into an opportunity to thrive. At what point did you say, right, okay, let's grab a hold of this? And what did you do?
I mean, for me and for us, we hired. You know, we brought on a third just before the end of last year, so about 12 months ago, and we thought we'd stay at that point, and then we just came across the right people at the right time, and it just kind of, it felt like the right thing to do was to increase headcount and you know put your foot down on it. You know, we saw there was loads of roles across all the different areas that we were recruiting, and we just wanted to make the most of it. So I guess our strategy was hire and grow. That was it.
Chaps.
Yeah, similarly here, we brought on our third. Ryan's better with the dates, so he'll know sort of exactly. I'm putting him on the spot. 6 months ago, I'll
September.
say.
September, and then our fourth or fifth, I guess, including Kyla, was March.
Yeah.
5 now. So yeah, growth as well on our side.
Do you think the growth that you've all experienced, you know, did COVID almost assist with the growth trajectory that you've enjoyed? Do you think you would have grown as fast and as much if you had, if it was just a normal market?
It's a hard one, because I think that, and I'm not sure about Ryan Kay's market, but there was a lot of pent up hiring that was just, even though we talked about the green shoots and businesses coming, you know, back online and starting to hire remotely, there was still a lot that had like hiring freezes on, and you know, that was still maybe a little bit more tentative and a little more cautious. I'm talking about through the tail, like mid to late 2020. I felt like we were seeing traction back in the market sort of even mid 2020 and late 2020 was busy, and then early 2021 was almost like a bit of a release. You know, a lot of businesses, it almost seemed like every business was hiring at once, sort of thing. So it definitely pushed demand to levels that, you know, we hadn't seen. I don't know if either Ryan has seen it in their times, but it got to unprecedented sort of levels, to use a pretty sort of worn out term. But yeah, so I think COVID did influence that, given it, you know, those floodgates definitely opened early 2021. But I still kind of think, I don't know what Lynchy's thoughts are. We probably would have been making these hires irrespective of whether or not, you know, we'd seen that sort of surge in roles from COVID.
Yeah, I think it would have been sort of steady growth. I think now it's been a bit more reactive to, you know, the volume of work that we have on now, and you know, it's critical we deliver. So yeah, increased headcount's an obvious, you know, solution to that.
Okay.
I think it's probably enabled us to have probably deeper relationships with clients, which, you know, is a very cliche throwaway term that a lot of people, you know, use when dealing with clients. But, you know, I think, you know, when the chips were down, I feel like one thing we're very proud of is that we didn't hide, or we didn't go underground, and, you know, we were there for a lot of candidates, a lot of clients. You know, we probably worked harder than we've ever done for no money during a period. So that I guess enabled us, which I think, to show our true colours. It also allowed us to enter into different client brackets that we probably wouldn't have been fortuitous to have those conversations. I mean, we set up an initiative which was designed to help young people affected by homelessness get into our industry at a time when, you know, everyone wanted to try and do the right thing or help out things, and it just worked really well. So we partnered up with Homey, and those guys, you know, provided some young people. We provided them a 6-week course, and then we got them paid internships. And the reality is, if we had been in a busy market where we were transacting, we just wouldn't have had time to do that stuff. And, you know, it's not that we don't want to do that still now. We are still doing those things to a degree, but that just allowed us to really kind of hone in and go, right, we're not just here to make placements. Well, we didn't have that option at the time, but how can we make a positive impact in the community? How can we strengthen our brand so that people know us as more than just a group of guys that makes placements?
Yeah.
COVID silver lining, mate. There's millions of them.
Absolutely.
Sounds like one of them. So are you, now you sit back and you've all aged about 15 years in 18 months. Do you look back on the experience of COVID with gratitude? Are you almost grateful that you went through it? And
we could have done without it, to be honest, Pete.
So are you grateful that you went through it? Whether you are or not, what's the main lesson that you've learned, whether it be about business or whether it be about yourself? That's deep. That's a bit deep, maybe.
Yeah, I wouldn't say gratitude that COVID happened, but gratitude, you know, for the lesson.
Yeah.
I think, you know, hopefully Touchwood will never go through something like this again at this magnitude. But yeah, I just really think it just taught you to not take anything for granted in, you know, either in, you know, work life, you know, sense. And nothing can prepare you for what's around the corner. So it does teach you a lot of lessons, and that you need to be, I guess, mentally and prepared for something like this, and what sort of contingency do you have if, you know, things dropped off a cliff, you know, tomorrow. So as I said, it'd be nice to have skipped the pandemic last year and this year, but yeah, it's a life lesson, definitely.
Yeah, I think I would agree there that it wouldn't have been my choice of first 2 years training, but yeah, you'll always look back at this and you would have grown and learned an incredible amount. You know, hopefully, like you say, we've gone through the worst of it, and whatever comes around the corner will seem lighter. So I think it's definitely toughened me up as an individual. But yeah, it's definitely sort of been a roller coaster, that's for sure.
Really not grateful for it, Pete. But yeah, you guys have both touched on it, and I think resilience. You know, there's obviously be recruiters watching this, and yeah, I mean that's any good recruiter worth their salt is as resilient as they come. But you know, ultimately, there's been a couple of times I'm chatting to another sort of agency owner that there's been a lot of good days since, but there's been a lot of awful days and a lot of days that you'd rather forget as well. And I think Ryan sort of touched on it. It's you know, there's family at home and a couple of kids in the room next door, and you know, the sun's shining in Melbourne today anyway. So sometimes it's just controlling what you can control and staying positive and staying resilient, and yeah, sort of enjoying the journey, as the Iterate values say.
Well, boys, congratulations for surviving COVID as startups and indeed coming through it and now thriving. What does the future look like? I mean, assuming things, you know, assuming we get to the start of 2022 and we're almost well and truly living with this thing and through it to all intents and purposes, what does the next couple of years look like for your respective businesses?
We can turn the light on in our office and get the sign firing.
Yeah, we just signed a 5-year lease on the 1st of June. I haven't really been able to enjoy it too much. So hopefully in the 5 years we've got the lease on Lennox Street, we'll be able to go in there for some of it.
Hopefully my plants are still alive. We just got the place kitted out in greenery before lockdown hit. So going to go back to a bunch of dead greenery in the office. But
imagine the electricity bill that you would have saved by not light turn.
I know.
What does it? The future look like? I mean, you know, more growth. We've got a bunch of spare desks in there at the moment, and a few pockets of the market that we're kind of not servicing, and jobs that we're kind of, you know, knocking back or saying no to. So you know, there's a bunch more growth for us, I think, in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So, I was wondering, Pete, if you could recommend any good rec-to-recs you might could tap up.
I don't know any, mate. Ryan Kay?
Yeah, I guess growth to a degree, but I think where we're at, it's probably going to be more of an emphasis on getting the people in the team firing, making sure that culturally we're not going to just become another big agency that people, you know, there's plenty of those. So I'm thinking more quality rather than quantity for the next probably 12 months. I think we've had our little growth spurt, and now it's about making sure that we're, you know, values aligned and that we enjoy working together, we have a good time, and that people feel like they're in a happy place, because I think that's something that we can kind of, you know, and I've been there, you know, you get carried away with vanity metrics around headcount and dollars billed and things like that. But I think that would take you so far. I think for us now, we've had we're delighted with where we're at, but it's now about making sure that the people in the business are looked after.
Nice.
Well, thank you, chaps. Thank you so much. Thank you for being involved. Thank you for making the time, because I know that there's some homeschooling challenges going on, and we haven't been interrupted by mini Iterate people. So that's we sailed through.
Locked away.
I was going to say the door's locked.
Boys, thanks again. Congratulations on surviving COVID. Not surprised in the slightest, and I hope that your business is absolutely boom in the coming years.
Great.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, chaps.
Appreciate it, mate. Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Good night.
Bye.